Welcome back to Fast Money. Stocks are rallying on Wall Street as Americans head to the polls. And our next guest says today's rally could be built on hopes of a Biden win and a favorable inner circle. Let's bring in Axios co-founder Jim Vandehei. Jim, welcome back to the show. Great to see you.
Good to be here.
In this article that Axios ran over the weekend really caught my eye, and I'm wondering if you think this is part of the reason why markets have been rallying the past couple of days. The notion that perhaps no senators will be named to his cabinet, to a Biden cabinet. Therefore, no Treasury Secretary Sanders, no Treasury Secretary Warren, or any other sort of combination.
Yeah, I think Elizabeth Warren would obviously like to be Treasury Secretary. Bernie Sanders would love a spot in the cabinet, maybe at Labor. But if you look at what Biden said, what he's thinking, remember he did this before when he came in under Obama. They inherited like a lot of economic trouble, and his lesson, his takeaway was you have to focus on the economy and the economy only, and you have to pump more money in than you think you do. That there's no consequence for overdoing it, but there is a big political consequence for underdoing it, because then you don't have a strong enough economy and workers don't feel content. And then if you do something that is perceived as ideological, like when they did healthcare, you can pay a price in the midterms. And so I think I would look for Joe Biden to, one, move fast. I've never seen a group of people spending more time on the transition pre-presidency than they have. And I would look for them to focus on the coronavirus, and the coronavirus. And that's it for the first year, because it gives him the cover to do the things that he wants to do on the spending side, and it holds off liberals.
At the same time, I mean, he will be appointing a cabinet. And so even though the focus of the markets as well is on some sort of stimulus plan and getting us out of the pandemic, they will also be looking at who he appoints specifically to Treasury, to Labor, and how moderate or how liberal, left-leaning that person might be. Are we to assume then that he is looking at more moderate appointments in these posts?
I think it differs by position. Listen, there's a lot of pressure from activists, sort of the new left, to have real, like, bona fide liberals in the cabinet. I think they'll do that, but they'll do it at the lower level cabinet positions. What matters, remember, every White House is essentially an oligarchy. Who is his chief of staff? Who is his economic advisor? Who is his Treasury Secretary? And it's all going to be comfort foods. It's going to be people like Ron Klain that have been around him forever. It might be at Treasury someone like Lael Brainard, or it might be Robert Ferguson, or maybe even Janet Yellen, like people that he knows, that he's comfortable with, because he understands that you can't waste a minute, that he likely would come in, if he were to win tonight, with all Democratic power, or mostly Democratic power, and he's going to want to move on these things. And so he wants people around him who he trusts. I can't stress enough how much he sort of delights in comfort foods of people that have been around him 20, 30, 40 years. And so I would not look for this to be some sort of exotic inner circle. It's going to be kind of a very conventional and predictable inner circle. And remember, if he were to win, obviously still a big asterisk, and he does pick up the Senate, you can do a lot in this country with this government if you have all-party rule. The only thing that holds you back is not being ready. Remember, Donald Trump kind of wasted several months because he didn't have a governing plan in place and an ability to fill his cabinet quickly enough to be able to get a lot done when he had all-party rule. And Joe Biden, I don't think, wants to make that mistake. He's been in town for, Lord knows, forever, right? And so he's been through this. He's seen the mistakes that others made, and they will try not to replicate that. And by the way, once you take that coronavirus banner, which is real, right? It's the only thing that really matters. It's going to judge his entire presidency, or Trump's second term would be predicated totally on can you get rid of this virus? Can you get a vaccine at scale distributed to a sufficient number of people to allow us to move past it? And once you're doing that, you can get a lot of spending through on that. You can do a lot of tinkering with healthcare. You can do a lot around infrastructure, because a lot of it then becomes about jobs in those specific sectors that have been hurt most profoundly by the virus.
Jim, in 2005, Doris Kearns Goodwin wrote Team of Rivals, The Political Genius of Abraham Lincoln. Understanding the world's changed significantly since then. Is there an opportunity for Joe Biden, assuming that he were to win, to do some sort of Team of Rivals light, something along the lines of what you're talking about, to take a more conciliatory tone and potentially try to heal what is a pretty fractured nation?
Obviously, opportunities there. I don't think he'll take it. I'd be surprised if there's more than a token Republican put in his cabinet. And one of the big reasons is he's under so much pressure from the left, who feels like he's too much of a centrist and too much of an institutionalist. And if he starts putting John Kasich's of the world in his cabinet, there'd be a massive backlash. I think the more likely scenario is that the guy loves to do deals, right? He likes to talk about budget reconciliation. He likes to be on the Hill. Much more likely is that he would spend a lot more time than your average politician, your average president, talking to Congress. And he's going to need Congress. Like, most likely, I don't think he's going to get rid of the filibuster right off the bat, if ever. I don't think he's going to pack the Supreme Court. I think he's been kind of clear on both of those. One of the reasons he probably doesn't have to is you can get a lot done through a stimulus bill or an aid package tied to the coronavirus. You can do a lot under budget reconciliation. And when you're president, if he were to win, you want momentum. Your whole presidency, your whole basis of power flows from, do people feel good about you and the country? And that always is, do I have a good job, and do I feel like things are getting better, not worse? And if you look back to how they handled the stimulus last time, Joe Biden would tell you his regret was they didn't go big enough, that package should have been a lot bigger, and that they should have pumped more money into the system so that they could have gotten more job creation to give themselves a much bigger boost. And that's what I think they'll try to do the minute they would assume the presidency if he were to win.
Jim, always great to get your perspective. Thanks for joining us.
Take care.
Jim Vandehei of Axios. Karen, comfort food. I like the way Jim put it, comfort food, but that sort of gives comfort to the markets that nothing will be too radical in that cabinet if Biden wins.
Right. I think that's been the plan all along, is just to take from the center to get elected. We'll see. I think the choice of Kamala was sort of soothing to those who thought he would be beholden to the left. So I sort of agree with what Jim's saying about how he would govern. It makes me think, though, the stimulus, I agree he would want to go big, but then does that put pressure on him to raise corporate taxes early to pay for that stimulus?
Bad for the markets.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.